Los Angeles Police Department officers pursued a possible DUI suspect who was driving erratically through surface streets in South Los Angeles during the evening rush hour on Friday, February 7th, 2025.
To cut through this intersection here, too much traffic going to come out onto Manchester Avenue. He has already been on Manchester once. He came under the 110 freeway and is now back on Manchester westbound from Figueroa. Again, doing whatever he can to try and lose those ground units, and I'm afraid they have had to pull back once again because he is driving way too fast, way too recklessly. That means that the LAPD airship is going to be the one keeping eyes on that suspect and trying to call out that location as he continues this dangerous joyride. This is a dangerous driver behind the wheel of that Mercedes right there in the middle of your screen for the first time. He is actually coming to a stop with traffic, and just a moment ago you saw a right hand there adjusting that right mirror. I'm not sure if that was his hand or if that was a passenger that was adjusting that mirror, but you saw that mirror move just seconds ago as he is now pointed westbound on Manchester Avenue at Hoover at a red light. This is the first time he has come to a stop. Right through it, and then came out the other side through another fence. So he really, and he did it at a pretty high rate of speed. Remarkable, again, that there's not more front end damage. There obviously wasn't a very heavily locked front fence, but he ran right through it nonetheless. Now on the surface streets here through a residential neighborhood, southbound, passing 88th Street. Very frightening to see this car traveling at these speeds through all of this, through all these houses here. He's already used parking lots. He's used alleyways. He's used every outlet at his disposal to try and evade the eyes of law enforcement and get away. But right now, we are doing our best to keep eyes on him as he continues this zigzag through southwest LA, which is in the LAX Bravo airspace, making it a little bit difficult to get that really clear overhead shot as he was coming towards us on Manchester. He has since now gone the opposite direction. He's moving away from us again, westbound on 92nd Street. I'm being told now that they are treating this as a possible DUI suspect behind the wheel of that car. Yeah, just cutting everybody off. Sorry, Giovanna, go ahead. That's the latest information we have. At least that's what they are treating this as, a DUI suspect. But obviously the charges have really stacked up here, and we're seeing a lot of really knee-jerk steering here as he makes these last-second moves, last-second turns, last-second lane changes to try and squeeze through traffic. It's a busy afternoon here. He is retracing some of the same territory that he has already covered, so he may not even be looking for a specific destination. It might be the case that he's looking for an opportunity to hide somewhere, potentially dump the vehicle and run away, or perhaps he has something else in mind entirely. But either way, the driving, very dangerous, very reckless, a little too dangerous for those officers to stay too close behind him here. They're going to have to triangulate their way in here and try to be ready for him when he does eventually come to a stop. They want to be ready for him, and that's what the airship is positioning those ground officers for. They're calling out the location. He's now on Century Boulevard, again going westbound on Century towards Inglewood as he is slowing down just a little bit. He's got a red light here. We'll see if he, nope, not even obeying that. Look at that, just making a wild right turn there through the red light, cutting more traffic off, and now he's really starting to establish a little bit of a circle. Maybe not exactly the same roads, but he's starting to do a loop through this part of Southwest LA, which may provide an opportunity at some point, if he ever slows down, for a possible spike strip. Very challenging in normal circumstances. At these speeds, it's really, really hard. He would have to slow down tremendously and start to ease up on that gas pedal for them to even position. And I think we're seeing the contrary here. I think it looks like he's actually speeding up, really pressing that gas pedal as he now is back on Vermont Avenue, heading northbound through the 90s. They have had no choice but to back off. They're trying to catch up. They're trying to get into a position where they can either intercept and then maybe put this back in pursuit mode. But it was so dangerous, they had to basically put it in tracking mode, give all of that responsibility to the airship. They were still trying to keep up with him from behind, but in the last several minutes, as you've been able to see, well, despite the fact that we saw flashing lights right behind him initially, they have pulled back significantly. That is the first sign right there. In several minutes, there are several SUVs about a couple hundred feet away from him, behind him, but you can see they're slowing down, actually giving him some breathing room. So they are intentionally keeping this in tracking mode. They are intentionally keeping their distance. They're pulling back. They obviously have no choice. They can't go through a lot of these red lights that he's blowing through, but they are starting to catch up here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 LAPD interceptors now on his tail, but still intentionally keeping their distance as he now slows down slightly down Manchester Avenue once again. So we're starting to repeat some of the same roads. If they can get somebody in front of them, it's again very difficult, especially with all this other traffic. But you look for any opportunity. If he slows down, maybe they'll give the go-ahead for that pit maneuver. Or maybe if he continues this loop, they can get somebody ahead of him with a spike strip. But the erratic nature of this chase really, it makes it much, much more challenging and starts to limit those options. They have those tactics at their disposal, but with a wild driver behind the wheel like this, under the influence, and who knows if they have more information that they are dealing with, including the possibility of a weapon or what other charges that this person may be wanted for. That's all going to play into the decision making, into how they use their tactics, how they use their tools, and whether they want to take any more aggressive action. Right now, they're pulling right up around him here, and he's going through the interstate, coming up on Western. He's coming up westbound Manchester at Western, at the red light, making the right turn, and they are going to make that right with him here as soon as they have the opportunity. Again, once he goes northbound here behind these buildings, we're going to intermittently lose a solid visual of that suspect vehicle. We're going to try and keep up with him here, but it's providing a challenge for us and obviously a challenge for LAPD as well. Yeah, no, what happens there, what tends to happen is that speedometer is basically tracking the movement of our camera, which is keeping up with the vehicle. But from this distance, at this angle, it sometimes loses its telemetry, and so it's much more difficult to keep up with that accurate speed. But now we're going to get another accurate speed as he slows down a little bit. We're going to get a better glimpse of him as he continues towards the 105 freeway. That is really a freeway that I am looking at right off the nose here as he gets closer to it. I'm hoping for everybody's sake, and I'm sure law enforcement is too, hoping he takes it. If he gets on the freeway, that would be the safest place for a driver like this. Unfortunately, he's going over the 105 freeway, and quite frankly, over the course of this pursuit, he has yet to drive on any freeways. He has been almost 100% on surface streets, now making a right turn Right turn on 120th Street off of Van Ness Avenue. Now heading westbound on 120th. And he's slowing down a little bit. Once again, you're going to see those LAPD units pull up behind him, and he's going to press the metal once again. Press that pedal to the metal once again as he looks like. So we're just getting word, guys, that LAPD has made the decision, at least for now, to disengage. But that is what they are giving the orders for. But that doesn't mean they're going to let him go completely. You're going to see, or we're about to find out at least. We're about to find out just how close those units stay behind him, or if they actually pull off completely. Right now, there are units making the turn at Hawthorne Airport. He's at the perimeter of Hawthorne Airport, and the airship is still overhead. So there's nobody chasing him. This is no longer a pursuit. They want to see if maybe pulling off completely just takes some of the pressure off of him, just enough to let that adrenaline cool down, and maybe he behaves differently. But in a situation like this, I find it hard to believe they're going to pull off completely, because if he continues the same aggressive driving, somebody is bound to get hurt, and you have to at least be in position if that's what's going to happen. Coming down Crenshaw. He's coming down Crenshaw Boulevard. He's about to hit El Segundo Boulevard. We're going to look up this block. He should be coming out around these buildings here. We're coming around the building. He should peek through here in just a second. He's going to be heading towards El Segundo Boulevard. I think he's stuck in traffic. Is that him? I'm actually confused. Those are two very similar Mercedes. Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. All right, so through El Segundo Boulevard, southbound on Crenshaw, we're going to look for any change in behavior here, because they have pulled off significantly, although they are still in the area. So Hawthorne police also very much in a position where they are likely monitoring this pursuit as well, if not on the radio, certainly on television, and LAPD continuing the following with their helicopter overhead here. So he is now behind another Mercedes. We're following the one behind him here, that one right there, who's just about to overtake the one at the top there. Very easy to get confused, but you're right. He's the one with the lights off there, Mark. Very good point, and he is now right behind that other silver Mercedes as he continues southbound on Crenshaw Boulevard, now coming up on 135th Street. Another red light. Yeah, it looks like he might be. Yep. Yep, he's pressing it once again. He took a right turn there. He was going eastbound. Now he's paralleling the riverbed there as he takes that alleyway. They are still following from above. You saw just a second ago that LAPD airship fly right through the shot. So even though they are disengaging on the ground temporarily, they are still tracking his movements very carefully. Now pulling into a parking lot. Is he looking to cut through, or is he going to dump the vehicle? Looks like he might be getting ready to park the vehicle and run for it. All right, dumping the vehicle, running into a mini mart, into the liquor store. Here we go. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. He didn't even, absolutely. We're about to see this intersection flood with officers any second. They are calling it out. LAPD right near the top left-hand corner of your screen. Ground units now moving into position, and they are going to make their way in here. He runs back out, gets in the driver's seat, is about to take off once again.
When the suspect reached the area near Crenshaw Boulevard and West 139th Street, he stopped briefly. exited the vehicle and entered a convenience store before getting back in the vehicle and speeding off again.
Back in that vehicle and is now getting back onto Crenshaw Boulevard. The chase continues, again, not technically in pursuit mode, but LAPD has eyes on this suspect as he is just a dangerous threat to everybody in this area, especially when you consider the driving that we have seen in the last few minutes here. Just a very dangerous situation. Not the type of person you want to let go of completely. You've got to get this guy, you got to at least be in position to get this guy if this ends tragically or if he eventually, dumps the vehicle. He is. He's westbound on 139th, slowing down quite a bit here, even stopping for the stop sign. We haven't seen much of that. He's only really been stopping when he's got somebody in front of him. He's actually got a stop sign here, giving the guy the right-of-way, and now cruising through 139th Street at a much more casual pace. For some reason, maybe it's the fact that he was able to park the car, go in, grab something, get back out. Maybe he just feels the pressure coming off of him. Maybe he thinks he is much closer to getting away with this crazy stunt this afternoon, but who knows? I'm being told now, guys, that the police ship has officially given this up. So that LAPD airship has now pulled off completely. You saw as he was over the mini-mart, the LAPD airship was right overhead. Now that he's back in the vehicle, they have completely disengaged. Everybody has turned around. The LAPD airship has pulled off, and his driving has changed dramatically. He obviously is feeling much less pressure at this juncture. We will see if that driving continues or if he starts to behave any differently. Something tells me that his senses are a bit relieved at this point. Something tells me that he was probably very likely aware of that helicopter. He could probably hear it and doesn't hear it anymore, although he probably hears ours, so who knows what he's thinking in terms of helicopters. But I think he just feels less pressure. More likely, I think the fact that he was able to run inside and grab something without any police in sight kind of gives him the freedom to get back in the car and maybe just start to wind this down, maybe just go home or find another hiding spot. But it's got to come to an end eventually. Who knows how much gas was in this tank initially. He's actually going slower than a lot of the traffic that is traveling down Rosecrans right now. So he's really behaving much, much differently. That was the hope originally when they first initiated this pursuit and then put it into tracking mode. They were hoping that by pulling back and giving him a little bit of freedom and breathing room that he would slow down. But in fact, that wasn't the case. He actually continued some really dangerous maneuvers, including ramming through that fence. But ever since he ran into that mini-mart, it's almost like a completely different driver behind the wheel of that Mercedes. Yeah, it's remarkable. Sorry, go ahead. No sign of law enforcement at all, either in the air or on the ground. I can guarantee you they are watching our feed, but for the time being, they are giving him the freedom to basically think twice about his life and move on with his day, essentially. They don't see it at this point as the threat that it was just a few minutes ago, and certainly that jives. I mean, this is like a completely different person behind the wheel. If he was, if he was suspected of being under the influence earlier, I mean...
At approximately 5:30 p.m., the LAPD withdrew from the pursuit in the Hawthorne area for safety reasons. The suspect eventually stopped on the side of the road along 153rd Street in Lawndale.
This is a Hyundai SUV that, according to the Illinois State Police Dispatch, is wanted for armed robbery earlier this day. This pursuit we heard on the Eastburn started off the Bishop Ford Freeway. That's 94. Went back and forth in Sibley, went down to the south suburbs, almost a collision about 3 minutes ago where this vehicle, as you can see, an extremely high rate of speed, turned around in Glenwood Dyer Road. Currently, this is northbound 394. And we are about
high-speed police chase spans multiple Chicago freeways. The chase stretched up and down Bishop Ford Highway and Illinois Route 394, then onto Interstate 57 and Dan Ryan Boulevard. A police chase unfolded Wednesday afternoon on multiple Chicago area freeways as a wanted vehicle was traveling at high speeds for about an hour. A police chase unfolded Wednesday afternoon, January 8, 2025, on multiple Chicago area freeways, as a wanted vehicle was traveling at high speeds for about an hour. The Illinois State Police and several suburban departments were seen chasing the Hyundai SUV as it sped up and down Bishop Ford Highway and Illinois Route 394, passing through the suburbs and downtown Chicago as it evaded authorities. The vehicle then exited Bishop Ford Road at 127th Street, sped westbound, and eventually entered Highway 57.
As you can see, driving erratically here, this is the Bishop Ford. This is the beginning of the Bishop Ford Freeway, northbound as we get up towards about 167th Street. Again, a lot of vehicles behind this. This vehicle will eventually maybe head up towards the city, and a whole network is waiting for them. What typically happens here is the state police will notify other suburbs. For example, this is heading up towards Dalton, Calumet City. Those suburbs may enact their people here to try to catch this vehicle ahead. And again, that's almost happened. There was almost a collision down in Lansing near Cottage Grove, down about Glenwood Lansing Road. Again, this vehicle wanted for armed robbery. They did say in the dispatch they believe there are 2 people inside and they're armed, and they're heading northbound here in the Bishop Ford, right around 159th Street.
And now we are clearly in rush hour too, Mike, and the traffic is getting heavier even as we've been watching this car weaving its way through. He's behind someone right now, just wove his way in front of a semi and is going along the shoulder. So this is clearly an extremely dangerous situation.
taken it, even with traffic. We're at 127 to Troop now. It's taken about 3 minutes to get from 127th all the way from the Bishop Ford, that's I-94, towards I-57 here. This is a busy intersection. 127th in Ashland here. We're by the expressway. Now we're crossing I-57, turning northbound here. Let's see if they jump on northbound I-57 towards the city here.
This is a very frightening situation. And at what point do you think there may be a shift in tactic here, Mike? I don't know. We don't know how far back they are because you can't change, and we don't want you to change the shot.
We've seen them gotten close a couple times, but you imagine a significant amount of coordination between the agencies here to try to communicate a possible path of where this person might go, even though there doesn't seem to appear to be any sort of plan. It, of course, got way more dangerous when you get off the interstate because it's much more close quarters, and one slight miscalculation can mean a really bad crash. And then you also have this as well, getting when he's back on I-57.
And you've got this speed, and anytime you've got this level of speed, the slightest mistake can be deadly. And it's a very frightening situation for those around them. They can't necessarily see what's coming, and this guy's definitely this person is definitely driving erratically on the shoulder.
There is a large curve that's coming up here that again is another dangerous situation where I've covered a lot of accidents. Northbound 57, when you go north of Monterey to 111th Street, there's a big curve that comes up on 107th Street. If you're driving without traffic, it can be very, very dangerous. And then we're about a mile away from this either turning into the Dan Ryan, and I don't want to predict here, but if I had to, I would say this vehicle will probably head east as 57 goes east and then go right back south on I-94 rather than heading into the city. They are still pursuing very vigorously, though, behind. We see 2 state troopers that are trailing here as safely as they can. They're basically about a quarter mile behind. We also see squads now above on 99th Street, and there's that curve there. It's going underneath 107th Street on the right shoulder. You saw that Chicago squad going eastbound. They're all communicating in what's called the ISBRN network. They all communicate in situations like this with each other. Look at this vehicle picking up speed now, northbound at the 103rd, and again, I-57 on the shoulder. This is going to make a northbound turn, and if you ever drive I-57, this is the turn around Halstead. In a matter of about 10 seconds here, it's going to have to turn right and then head eastbound towards the Dan Ryan merge. They just said on the dispatch that they said there was a male inside, and again, this vehicle is wanted for armed robbery earlier in the day. They're saying there's a male and a female inside. They believe that the people inside this vehicle are armed.
Riveting to watch this, but so frightening. And I worry, honestly, the most about the people that they are approaching. They have no idea what's coming their way, except someone that's moving very quickly. And how many times have you been on the expressway and had some really fast driver come up on you and scare you, and your reactions become critical? So it's really a frightening moment right now just to watch this and where they're going to go and how police can even manage this. How, you know, what kind of strategies they have to use to try to be able to handle this situation, because we have seen what happens when these chases go horribly wrong.
And in a crash, and that's so often the case.
Exactly. Now we're on the Dan Ryan. So now they just went north on the Dan Ryan, and as we all know, a lot more traffic on the Dan Ryan. So now northbound, really again picking up that speed here. Northbound Dan Ryan, we're going to come up on 95th Street here. Now I can look ahead northbound. There is no traffic on the northbound Dan Ryan. There's the CTA red line at 95th Street. You'll see the vehicle come out on the other side of that. You've got the Dan Ryan. Now again, what's different from the Dan Ryan than the other expressways, you've got exits basically every 4 blocks here. So they can exit 87th Street, 79th Street, 74th, 71st. You get the idea. Eventually, you can head all the way north, and we don't see any traffic on the northbound Dan Ryan all the way up until about where the Stevenson is. So again, this is another area where this vehicle, a Hyundai that is wanted for armed robbery, can pick up a large amount of speed. And now we're exiting again here. Let's see, we are at 87th Street. So I believe they're exiting at 87th Street.
So you're getting into a residential area, and this is rush hour still, and who knows what the circumstances are. School is in session, so there are potentially schools nearby that could be part of the problem. They're on residential streets now where you don't have, you know, you have to slow down at each street to make sure that you don't run into anybody a lot of times on these side streets. So there could be pedestrians making their way Fortunately, it's cold. Maybe people, not as many people may be out walking the streets, but still, you're in a residential area, and he's still going well beyond the speed limit. Maybe not 100 miles an hour, but well beyond the speed limit.
And again, you see it right here as opposed to the expressway where you know it's open. These are residential streets, and you don't know what's coming up, and this could absolutely cause a collision. I believe we're off of State Street, or maybe a block off of this. They got off at 87th Street, went about a block, so we are about 80, coming up maybe about 83rd Street here, northbound on this residential street.
Yeah, you just saw him go over a speed bump. So you're in a clear residential street dealing with speed bumps. This makes it even more frightening. I don't know. I know people are watching, or they can alert people, and that's one of those things. There's no way for drivers and residents necessarily, unless they're watching television right now, to know what's going through their neighborhoods, and other drivers as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and I think these speed bumps are here because we're off of State Street here, and again, now the vehicle is heading eastbound, but those speed bumps are there because a lot of people take those as alternates for the Dan Ryan and tend to exceed the speed limit there because they think, well, I want to save time getting off the Dan Ryan. Now the vehicle heading eastbound here, and I believe we're on around 83rd Street and trying to stay with this. I'm not sure, and I was looking behind here when we're trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out if the state police or the people have been pursuing even know where this vehicle still is. They may have lost him because I'm trying to look behind as we stay with the vehicle, which I believe is east and around 83rd Street, and they may have lost the vehicle. So if anybody's listening in, this looks like east on 83rd Street. We're about a block or two from Martin Luther King, which is 400 east here. Again, that vehicle bailed off the Dan Ryan, and I believe this is coming up on MLK now and went eastbound across MLK. So that was Martin Luther King here, and eastbound, I believe, again, this is 83rd Street. And again, Marion, as you were talking about, this is a residential area where speed limits are about 20 or 25 miles an hour. You've got a stop sign almost at every light here. Now the vehicle going northbound, so we're at about 600 east here, northbound, and a very residential area, and now we're parked. So the vehicle has pulled in front of a home here. We're about 2 blocks east of Martin Luther King here. And
the driver then briefly drove onto the oncoming Dan Ryan Expressway before exiting at 87th Street. At that point in the pursuit, the vehicle entered a nearby neighborhood, stopping several times before 2 individuals exited the vehicle near 83rd Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The 2 individuals then separated, driving in opposite directions. One of the individuals passed 2 police cars before officers in the area apprehended him. Officers were seen handcuffing the individual.
Was wanted for armed robbery. So the vehicle is parked here, and again, we're about 2 blocks east of Martin Luther King. Got back in the car here now, and just north of 83rd Street. And again, don't see any police moving in at this time. Let's see if the vehicle stays here or continues to move on.
Allison Rosati with Stefan Holt here. We want to thank Marion and Alex for their coverage. This is very surprising, especially after the high speed that this car was traveling at with the armed suspects inside, that they would take time to park. Do you have any eye on any type of law enforcement nearby, or is this pursuit over?
So the lights that we saw flashing on the expressway, and again, if you're just joining us here, as the vehicle parks again, this one up and down 394 and up and down the Bishop Ford Freeway, there were lights the whole time. Those lights appear to be gone. Now there is a vehicle, let me count my streets here, that's coming off of 83rd Street as there's 2 people inside this vehicle. Get out there on the sidewalk. There are squads that are starting to come west on 83rd Street. So we are, let's see, I think we're about a block east of Martin Luther King. I do see squads, and again, we can't show you that shot here because
they're splitting up. One person's going one direction, the other's going in the other.
Right, one person's gone in different directions. There's a department down below here to where these people are. So this is the man that we saw get out of the vehicle. Again, this was a Hyundai that was wanted for armed robbery. The Illinois State Police Network, and there you go. There's a squad pulling up right now.
Oh.
And let's see if we have a foot chase here. I believe we're on 83rd Street, and I believe somebody is about to be taken into custody.
Remarkable, walking so casually down the street, looked like they were on a cell phone, and that Illinois State Police car just rolled up real fast and got out and told them to get back onto the sidewalk there. I'm watching another officer approach there.
I have to say, I was
So this has come to an end.
Concerned because of the fact that there was an armed situation, that there might have been somewhat of resistance or a shootout. So thank God this appears to be ending peacefully with the suspect taken into custody.
Right, I believe we are 83rd Street and Martin Luther King, 83rd and King Drive. So again, it looks like we're in custody.
Mike, just to confirm, we saw two people get out of that vehicle. This was the one gentleman who turned to the right of the camera. The other person went left. Do we have any idea on what happened to that person?
We don't. And Max, I'm going to ask my camera person because Max was following as well. We saw the other person go in the other direction, eastbound. That was off of 83rd Street. That's correct? All right, so just to sum all of this up very quickly, this pursuit went on for about 30 or 40 minutes. It was off of the Bishop Ford I-94, went